Wakfu is one of the best cartoons ever made. And if you haven't seen it, that's a real shame. This is a Shroomy Boy video made so people go and watch good content. So stop watching it. I wasn't hyperbolic in that intro. I really believe Wakfu never got the praise and attention it deserved. Taking a surface level look at the show might lead you to some very wrong conclusions. Oh, it's just a kids show, it's nothing for me anymore. Unfortunately, its trailers and previews don't do the show justice at all. It's a lot like early Avatar, where there are some rough parts to get through before getting to that good stuff.
Selfless duty calls you to sacrifice your own spiritual needs.
Not saying it could ever even contend with Avatar, but when we're talking about shows designed to appeal to a younger audience but that you can still enjoy later in life, I would put it as a close second, with Gravity Falls somewhere close to it. You will notice the intended child audience in some parts of the show,
but
even just season 1 has a lot of moments that elevate it above a standard kids show. Even the animation helps you notice this. It's generally good, but when one of the big fights happen, it rocket jumps into the stratosphere. The studio, who by the way were just a small French company when this show started, so it makes their accomplishments even more impressive. Quick side note from my kitchen, I just found out they made the whole thing in Flash, which... damn. They clearly put a lot of effort into making some moments the highlight of each season.
C'est la patience de Kougalou Rakran qui a atteint ses limites.
And it's unfortunate that some parts can feel like a bit of filler because of that. So, if you came across Wakfu and dismissed it as just another children's cartoon, then you've made at least one big mistake in your life. That out of the way, let's talk the plot. Wakfu is the story of a boy named Hugo who gets dropped off by a mysterious cloaked figure at Alibert's inn. Growing up, he discovers his strange ability. He can create portals in a short range around himself. When his adoptive father turns into a bush because of some forest curse, he tells Hugo about a message left by the man who dropped him off that will guide him to his real family. Unlike most protagonists who lose their parents, Hugo only starts his quest after he's been able to save his dad. He succeeds with the help of a newly assembled cast that will stick with him for most of the story. Sœur Tristepin, a yop he met not too long ago after the night busted into Alibert's inn possessed by the Chouchou Rubilax. Evangeline and Her Royal Majesty Amalia Sharamsham, a princess of the Shadida people and her Kra bodyguard, who would be unnecessary if Amalia actually used her plant-based abilities effectively. And lastly, Ruelstrud, a stingy Enuthof and old friend of Alibert. After the momentary distraction of saving Hugo's home village, they depart for the Isle of Oma to find the truth. Where things really get interesting is when the main antagonist of the first season gets more directly involved with the plot. From the very first scene, we are aware that a Xelor called Nox is pursuing Hugo and or his previous caretaker to obtain great amounts of Wakfu. For those wondering, Wakfu is just your standard life force / magical energy. Talking about season 1, I have to acknowledge it's mostly Nox doing the heavy lifting. He's such a great villain, he brings it all to a new height. Unlike most cartoon bad guys, he has a reasonable, though not airtight, excuse for his actions. And as more of Nox's backstory is revealed, partly in an OVA, he really becomes easier to sympathize with. Having self-contained episodes with a red thread running between them that leads up to a big season's finale that ties everything together remains in season 2. What kept me captivated until getting to that ending was the surprisingly fascinating world building and the characters' relationships. You won't find any morally grey characters. That kinda comes with having a all ages audience. All of our main characters are fundamentally good people who struggle with getting along or have some internal conflict. Yugo is a lovable sweetheart who just can't help but feel compassion unless you really take it too far. Ruel has a love for Kamas in his DNA. Belonging to the mining and trade focused race of the Inutrovs, he always looks for an opportunity to save some coin. Amalia spent her whole life inside a palace till the day she heard adventure call. Being accustomed to the lavish lifestyle of royalty, she often comes off as entitled. Evangeline is mainly concerned with keeping the princess safe and often pushes back on the group's risky ideas. Tristepin is reckless and always ready for a fight, a yop through and through. By far, the most developed character dynamic is the blooming relationship between Tristepin and Evangeline. Their first interactions are a bit hostile, with Evangeline often mocking the yop for his stereotypical stupidness, but their feelings develop despite this. Now, just in case that overview of the show's strengths didn't convince you to go check it out, you can now listen to me ramble about some cool parts of the lore. In this world, there are items called shushu's. Tristepin's sword is one of them. They are creatures from another dimension that have been imprisoned into objects to limit their destructive power. They're clearly meant to be some sort of demons, but nobody in the show ever uses that word. You can easily recognize them by the eyes on their cages. In one scene, Ruel mentions that Shushu can have different levels of power, but this is never elaborated on. Most high-ranking Shushu seem to have a unique ability they can only use when they are freed from their object. Something very loosely related to the previous subject, it seems that sometimes gods descend to this realm and visit their creations to help them out. Tristepin's master once fought the Shushu King Rushu side by side, the Yop god.
J'ai été aidé par un dieu à l'époque, mais je ne crois pas qu'il viendra cette fois.
This god seems to continuously transfer his power to mortals so they can act with his blessing. These chosen Yop are seen as equal to the god himself. So in the world of Wakfu, this sentence,
Eh bien, Rushu, on est en panne de motivation.
Tu es devenu le nouveau dieu Yop.
On peut rien te cacher.
makes perfect sense. It's unclear whether other gods of the world of 12 do this. Oh yeah, that's what the planet is called because it's based off the 12 original groups/races of the original game. Why didn't I mention this yet? So, the series is based on an old French RPG I have never ever played. But if you want to hear someone passionate talk about it and understand French, look up some clips of Squeezy talking about it. Also, the concept of dungeons, which challenge rooms and mini-bosses, is mentioned a few times in the show, which I thought was a funny detail. Going more in-depth would get into spoiler territory, so I'ma keep it here. Thanks for watching.
Sorry for the weird color changes in the video.